Good day, everyone. This is Debbie Bruck, the founder of Homeopathy World Community and host with co-host Dr. Deepak Sharma on the Health In Show, an affiliate program of Homeopathy World Community. We are so pleased. First, I want to thank Amnon Nissan for hosting us on Nissan Communications. And we are very, very happy to present today Dana Trentini, Thyroid Mom, both on Twitter and thyroidmom.com. She is creating waves of awareness, which is our motto, and telling people something very, very important about what's happening due to our environment to the lives mostly of women. And she has a statistic here that according to the Thyroid Federation International, there are up to 300 million people worldwide with thyroid dysfunction, yet over half, that's 150 million people, have been undiagnosed or don't even know that they have this problem. I want to start also with a quote. Lao Tzu said, "A leader is best when people barely know he exists. When his work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will say, 'We did it ourselves.'" And that's actually happening. Because one tweet at a time, one day at a time, one radio show at a time, Dana is putting her message out there. Women and men are hearing this message and taking it to heart and doing some investigative reporting themselves and maybe changing their lives in order to prevent or manage this problem. I also want to say one more thing. Well, I'll let her talk a little bit about how she got involved and started in this process, but I want to give a shout out to her because on May 4th, 2013, Dana was named one of the top 10 competitors in the competition Change the World, the search for the 2013 Global Thought Leader. And as the competition heats up, they're narrowing it down. She's going to tell us if there's something that we can do to help her gain the top spot. If we have to tweet something, if we have to email a message, whatever it is, because she wants to get this word out to the public. So welcome, Dr. Sharma, and to Dana.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Okay, so first, let's find out just how you did get started. And, well, maybe tell us first how we can help you with your competition, the Global Leadership Award.
Thank you, Debbie. I'm so excited about this. The competition is Change the World, sponsored by Ghost Tweetings. My mission is mandatory thyroid screening in pregnancy. We are the top 10. I'm one of the top 10. And on Thursday, I will have a page on the Ghost Tweeting website where people can like my page. You can come to hypothyroidmom.com on Thursday, and the competition will run for 1 week, and I'll have instructions on how you can vote for me. This is really important to me, Debbie. I lost an unborn baby to hypothyroidism back in 2009. I hadn't done any research. I'm not a doctor, but I do have a science and research background, but I didn't use any of it. I just trusted that my doctors would know what to do when I was pregnant with hypothyroidism, and unfortunately, I discovered that they don't always know what to do. So I set out on a mission. Currently, there is no mandatory thyroid screening in pregnancy, which is shameful, and I feel that the time has come. The time has come where there should be mandatory thyroid screening for pregnant women all around the world. So I'm really excited about this, and if you vote for me, you can help me with this mission.
Wonderful. So not very many people in the world, I mean, I've had miscarriage. Plenty of people have a miscarriage, but they perhaps don't investigate what was the cause of it or go the extra mile and make it their cause. The raison d'etre, the reason why they're alive, to help other women. I think that's marvelous.
Thank you. Sometimes I think I'm crazy. That I think I could change the world is quite extraordinary for me. I never used Twitter. I'm not a blogger. I never used Facebook before October when I launched hypothyroidmom.com. So for me to be sitting here, top 10 of this competition is very mind-boggling for me. But you know, when you feel a feeling deep inside you that you're supposed to do something very important, well, that's what's inside me. I've known it since the day of my DNC following my miscarriage. I knew something wasn't right, and I knew that I was destined to help babies. I wasn't able to help my child. Sorry, I hear some noise. I wasn't able to help my child. And I think that what is driving me is I have felt a sense of guilt that I didn't research, that I didn't look further into it, that I wasn't an advocate for myself. And I think that that guilt has turned into, well, I didn't do it then, but I'm sure going to do it now, and I'm going to help the babies that I can help. And I know that if we have mandatory thyroid screening in pregnancy, that we can help women to save their babies. If you imagine there are 150 million undiagnosed thyroid sufferers, majority of them are women. Many of them are childbearing age. So what happens to all the babies, to these women? If we don't have mandatory thyroid screening, they don't even know that they have hypothyroidism. Their doctors don't know they have it, and their babies are at risk. So I just feel that it's deep inside me. I feel it's my destiny. It may sound really crazy, but I just feel like my instincts tell me this is what I'm meant to do.
Well, it seems the universe is with you because you've skyrocketed in a very short amount of time into the Twitter sphere, into the blogosphere, and you're getting this message out, and people are recognizing your work. Maybe a good thing to do would just to be starting with telling people signs and symptoms that they might recognize to begin questioning and asking their doctor. Or do you recommend every single time you go for an annual physical, or only for women who are, are pregnant? What would you say?
You know, I hope to see the day when every person has thyroid screening as part of their annual physical. I mean, that's my goal, my wish. Currently, that's not necessarily being done, and so I think you need to be an advocate for yourself and know what the symptoms are. I wrote a blog post called 300 plus hypothyroidism symptoms, yes, really. And wow. I've had over 4,000 Facebook likes on that one article alone on my site. So why do I think that it's such a popular site article? I think it's because the thyroid has a role to play in every cell of our body from head to toe. Every cell of our body needs thyroid hormone for proper functioning. So why are there 300 plus symptoms? Because every cell, every organ, every tissue of our body can be impacted if we have low or high thyroid hormone levels. So everything from if you're feeling fatigue, if you're dealing with weight issues, for hypothyroidism in particular, people can have depression. There can be mental health symptoms. If you're having fertility issues or you're having miscarriages and pregnancy complications, if you're feeling pain, there's links to fibromyalgia. The chronic fatigue is probably the worst. The hair loss, the dry skin, the skin conditions, the infections. Oh my God, a lifetime for me of infections and always getting colds and flus and bladder infections, and I had kidney stones. You can get kidney stones and gallbladder stones. So it can really affect your whole body. Your menstrual cycles can go out of whack because of low or high thyroid hormone levels. So you see, it can really affect every part of your body. So I encourage people to please come to my site and look at that article. I think it would blow your mind. There's research linking hypothyroidism not just to miscarriage, stillbirth, pregnancy complications. I mean, that alone is reason enough that this is serious, but it's linked to heart disease and diabetes and Alzheimer's. So it's a really serious issue. We need to pay more attention.
Absolutely. From memory loss to body muscle tenderness, our heart,
high cholesterol,
yes,
high blood pressure.
You name it.
Yes,
so
and
go ahead, Dr. Sharma.
Yes, it is really interesting, Paul, Dana, that I met with many ladies who are lost their babies just because of hypothyroidism, but they are not doing anything. But it's a really interesting thing that you are doing a such type of awareness regarding the hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism is basically a gland which regulates the BMI of our body. So it regulates, and it's true, its effect on the each cell of the body with the proper function, and it's also regulated by the pituitary, a gland into the brain. So pituitary is secreting TSH, that's why the thyroid is controlled. So I will explain later, but I want to hear you. Everyone is want to hear about your experience. Just continue.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been shocked by the number of followers that have reached out to me. I think that a lot of people are not aware that, first of all, that they have a thyroid problem to begin with, so that if you have a lot of strange symptoms and nobody is able to put their finger on what's going on for you, ask for thyroid testing. There are two big issues in the thyroid world. Why are people not being diagnosed? Well, first, I think there's just a lack of awareness in general. People don't realize it's a serious issue. The other thing is that there is one test, TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, that's used to diagnose and treat people. The unfortunate part is that that one test doesn't give a complete picture of the thyroid health of a person. So I have a lot of followers that have a normal, again, that range of normal is very broad, which is another issue, and it should be narrowed. But a lot of people that have a normal TSH, but they have all these terrible symptoms, and they should get further testing. So things like free T3 and free T4 and thyroid antibodies, so important. But there's such a concentration on this TSH that we're missing a lot of people.
So we need to educate the physicians as well, and that seems to be something else that you're doing.
Yes, I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a woman who lost my child, and I'm mad. I'm just so angry.
Yeah.
And I'm so angry, and I want the medical community to say, wait a second, maybe I should take a closer look at this, and maybe there are undiagnosed people, and many of them may be pregnant, and I just want them to look more closely. I fell in that normal TSH range for a period of time, and I felt deathly ill. And it was because, in my case, my free T3 levels were below normal. And so my doctor missed it until I found a new doctor who was more open to exploring the different possibilities, including adrenal function and iron levels and nutrient levels. So it's really about, if your doctor's not looking further, to then look for a doctor who is really open-minded, thinks outside the box, and will do further testing for you.
I want to open the discussion up for anyone who wants to call in with a comment or a question or praise for Dana. You can call in the United States, area code 919-518-9773, or internationally on Skype at computers2 letter K voice. Okay, so if you call in, we'll answer, pick up the phone. And I want to thank everyone who is out there today listening. And where shall we direct the rest of the show depends upon you. We could talk about hypothyroidism in infants, because that's one of the things that Dana affected you, and you did go on. You had one of the things that perhaps I wanted to address to Dr. Sharma also was, you had one child first, and maybe that was like the trigger that set up the problem that you incurred with your thyroid. And then the second pregnancy was the one you had a miscarriage, and then you made a correction to your problem. And I guess I want to find out whether that was nutritionally or how you did that. And then you had another child. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you.
So you see the process. So tell us, what did you do to get yourself on the right track?
Such an important question, Debbie. I think miracles. I think a miracle happened to me. My second son I don't think he'd be here today if I hadn't looked further. And I don't want to start crying, but I think that I've had these symptoms since I was a baby. I've had constipation, chronic infections, fatigue. Ever since I was a little girl, I've had eczema and skin conditions. When I hit puberty, my menstrual cycles were just crazy. I would miss periods. I'd have really heavy periods, very painful, cramping periods, just very unusual. And there are 3 times in a woman's life when she's more vulnerable for this to happen, for it to be triggered. When those sexual hormones are, shifting is a time when your thyroid hormones are also very vulnerable. So there's the 3 P's. There's the pregnancy, puberty, pregnancy, and perimenopause and menopause are the 3 times in a woman's life when she's most vulnerable. And I remember my symptoms worsening with puberty, although I was not diagnosed. But when it really crashed for me was after I had my first son in 2006. It was like I went over a cliff. I mean, I was hit with a fatigue that I had a newborn and I couldn't open my eyes to wake up in the morning to take care of him, that I realized I wasn't a good mom to him because I couldn't keep my eyes open. And I started hiring help even though I was home with my son because I knew something was wrong and I was really tired and I wasn't functioning. I happened to look at a picture of myself and I was slumped over like I was like a 90-year-old woman and, someone had done a sort of candid shot of me. And I looked at the picture and said, what's happened to me? And I went to my doctor and, they said, oh, it's normal to be tired and it could be postpartum depression. Maybe you could take some sleeping pills. It's normal when you are postpartum to be tired. Well, what happened to me, I started getting high cholesterol. My blood sugar levels started spiking. And then finally, I landed in the emergency room a year after my son was born with very painful kidney stones. When I was sitting in that emergency room, I'm so fortunate that a doctor came by and he said, it's so strange. You told me how you eat so well and you exercise and I can't figure out why you have these kidney stones. And he thankfully decided, well, why don't I do a very comprehensive test, and found out I have hypothyroidism. I would have never known had that man not decided to test me. I started my treatment. I was on, at the time I was on Synthroid, and I was feeling a little bit better, but I didn't feel great. That was when I got pregnant again, and I wasn't feeling so great. When I had that second pregnancy, I started diving. It was like I went into a deep hole. Like it was like I couldn't wake up. I had this morning sickness that was so extreme, and I felt like as if toxins were invading my body, to the point that at one point I said to my husband one night, there's something wrong with the baby. It's like there are toxins inside me, like something's wrong. Well, it turned out, I miscarried that baby, and it turned out that my TSH had skyrocketed and was far above the normal reference range for pregnancy. Finally, I put my foot down. I said, something's not right and I have to do something. And I found a book by a thyroid advocate named Mary Shulman that changed my life. The book was called Living Well with Hypothyroidism. I recommend everyone listening to read that book by Mary. I got consultation services with Mary, and she literally changed my life. She encouraged me to find a doctor that would be open-minded to testing free T3, free T4, reverse T3, and thyroid antibodies. A doctor that was open to exploring beyond Synthroid. So I was put on natural desiccated thyroid, which is derived from pig thyroid, contains T4 hormones and T3 hormones, and it literally changed me, literally. Within several weeks, all of a sudden I was energetic and my weight was improving and that depressive feeling was lifting. my periods started regulating, and my cholesterol actually came down without any statin drugs, simply by going on natural desiccated thyroid. My blood sugar levels came down. I never had another episode of kidney stones. So you can see it had a dramatic effect on me, so much so that I got so healthy that I got pregnant with my second son. And I think one of the tips that Mary gave me in consultation, the only reason that my son is alive is, first of all, the American Thyroid Association guidelines for pregnancy were issued a few years back, and they recommend a TSH less than 2.5. Mine was always above 2.5 during that pregnancy where I miscarried. That changed me. My doctor followed those guidelines, made sure that I was below 2.5 pre-conception. Then as soon as I started trying to conceive, I already had a lab requisition form in my hands ready to go for lab testing, because the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, the fetus is completely dependent on the mother for thyroid hormone for growth and development. But what happens is the OBGYN appointments are not until about 8 or 9 weeks pregnancy. So imagine that window of time where a woman doesn't have enough thyroid hormone or has too much, which is also dangerous, hyperthyroidism. So what I did is I got a lab requisition form. I got boxes and boxes of pregnancy tests, because as soon as I started trying to conceive, I used those tests so that I could find out right away when I was pregnant. I went in, I got my lab tests done right away. My meds were increased immediately because my TSH had already skyrocketed by the time I was 4 weeks pregnant. Had I not done that, had I waited until my 8 or 9 week OBGYN appointment, I don't know that my son would be here. I don't know what detrimental effects would have happened, because my TSH literally skyrocketed within 4 weeks of pregnancy. So I guess what I want to say is, read the American Thyroid Association guidelines for pregnancy. They were issued in 2011. The same guidelines, similar guidelines, are in the Endocrine Society guidelines for pregnancy, issued in 2007. Bring a copy to your doctor in case he or she has not read the guidelines. And literally, they saved my life, and I had my son. I don't know where I'd be without thyroid advocates like Mary. And I feel that a miracle happened to me. I feel that my son would not be here today. And I feel like I have to pay it forward now. Now it's time for me. Okay, so this happened to me. Now what can I do for other people? So here I am, Debbie, on your show.
Well, we love it. We love to hear a successful outcome, a good outcome, even as emotional as it is. And it's very close to you, and you explain it very well to the listening audience. We have a caller. Welcome to the show.
Hi, this is Dr. Blake.
Dr. Blake, Dr. Stephen Blake, the pet whisperer.
Hi, Dr. Blake.
Yes, that's who it is. I just caught the last part of that call, and I've been in the business 40 years, in the animal business, and the hypothyroid in dogs is epidemic. In cats, hyperthyroid is epidemic. And I think I told you, Doc, in an email that in my 40 years, my humble opinion is vaccines are the main cause. So that's why I called just a 2 cents.
Well, we appreciate you calling in and adding that little bit of information, because our pets, we are part of our family, and they live very closely with us. They very often are indicators of health issues in the pet owners. And depending upon, for instance, the environment, the house environment with the chemicals that could be affecting our endocrine system, and our outside environment, if you're making a lawn with lots of pesticides, or if you have chlorine or fluorine in your water. There's so many issues that we would love to touch upon today about the environmental effects onto the thyroid. And so if your pets are outside and on the ground and walking around, we can understand why it is at epidemic levels. Someone tweeted me or Facebooked me. Yeah, I think it was on Facebook today. Barbara Barbara somebody, Burkowski, said, Debbie, it seems like there's a hypothyroidism epidemic. So, people are hearing the message, and that is the goal. But now, what actions must we take? Is it within the medical societies and organizations themselves? Does it have to come from the public that has to push for this advocacy? And then, just because we get a test and we have a number reading, where do we go from there? Because it's so much more complicated than that. You want to jump in, anybody?
Oh, I'll jump in if you want to hear some more.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, you hit the nail on the head. When I said vaccines, I have a triad that I always put out there. And my vision is, my dream is, before I enter the ether, that we'll live in a drug, chemical, and vaccine as we know it today. It's not, it's just, we need to clear our world of this because it's causing this. Where the topic today of hypothyroidism is just the tip of the iceberg. We're talking autoimmune disease, which is also definitely a part of the hypothyroid epidemic, and then cancer is rampant. It used in the day when I started 40 years ago, about less than 5% of the animals had cancer. Now it's 55 and rising.
Wow.
And that's accelerated in the last 10 years. So it's been an exponential. It was kind of arithmetic at first, and then it's gone vertical. And so what you said about the yard, I said 35 years ago. Maybe you'll remember, but I said you've got to stop using herbicides and pesticides for the animals, but for ours too, because the animals are on the ground with no shoes.
And the little kids are running around, rolling around with their little pet.
Yeah. So, Exactly. But see what happens, the way I discovered it was my own health. I was absorbing the chemicals from the dogs that we were dipping. And the day we dipped them with pesticides to get rid of fleas and ticks. So I was absorbing it through my skin. I was just doing what I was taught in medical school. And then I got ill, and then luckily I found a doctor who recognized the pesticide poisoning, and that's what got me started on this journey, 33 years ago. But anyway, back to the critters. The other thing I need to point out that you guys may not
Can I leave you as a cliffhanger? Dr. Blake is going to return on the Health In Show July 1st, talking about this precise issue. So I'm going to leave everybody hanging to learn, bated breath, what are we going to learn from you? So now, Dana, our special guest today, tell us more about what you want the message out there.
The first thing is I want you to be an advocate for yourself. That's number one. I think you need to learn everything you can about this condition, and go in and know what testing is needed, and know that there are other drug options besides the T4 only drugs like Synthroid. Know that there are other options if you're not feeling well. Dr. Blake brought up such an important point about autoimmune disease, and I can't let this show go without talking about thyroid autoimmune diseases such as Hashimoto's. It's considered the number one cause of hypothyroidism in the U.S. and one of the leading causes in the world. And you wonder, so what is going on? A lot of people are not tested for their thyroid antibodies, and they don't even know that they have a condition like Hashimoto's. The immune system goes out of whack. It starts attacking its own thyroid gland. What is going on? And Debbie and Dr. Blake, I think you brought up the points of the environment and your diet and what's going on in the world. Why is this happening? I find it interesting with Hashimoto's because there are so many underlying issues with Hashimoto's that are not being tested. And they should be tested. First of all, there's very little thyroid antibody testing going on in the first place. So if you have a thyroid condition, please be sure to ask for your thyroid antibodies to be tested. But there's so many factors. I was thinking about the soil and the depletion of nutrients in the soil by modern agricultural methods. I find that interesting because when I went in for my testing, my doctor is very open-minded and looks at me as a whole person. And she tested my nutrient levels, and I was shocked. I was low in everything: D3, B12, magnesium, zinc, selenium, iron. I was low in everything. Our our soils are depleted of nutrients, and some of those nutrients, such as selenium, are needed for the conversion of T4 hormone to T3 hormone. So that can underlie Hashimoto's, and yet oftentimes they are not tested. So important to get that testing done. The other interesting part about Hashimoto's is gluten. And I would love to hear Dr. Sharma.
Say that again, is
gluten.
Yes, let's make the gluten connection.
Yeah, I would love for you, and I would love to hear from you and Dr. Sharma about gluten, because I found such a huge difference when I went gluten-free, and I'm just so curious. I've read so much about the connection between gluten and Hashimoto's, and how the body, how the gluten is biologically similar in structure to the thyroid, and how if you have a sensitivity to gluten, you can then become a sensitive and attack your own thyroid. And I have found gluten to make a very big difference. Now, we're all different in terms of what works for us, but it's something worth trying just to see if within a few weeks, if it makes a difference for you. I have found that removing my gluten made a very big difference. I'm curious, Debbie and Dr. Sharma, what are your thoughts about gluten and their link to hypothyroidism?
Go ahead, Dr. Sharma.
Yes, I am just explaining a truth about the thyroid. Thyroid is basically a gland situated in the neck, we all know, but the function of the thyroid is always depend on the level of TSH that is secreted by the pituitary gland, and TSH is also depend on the TSHRF. TSHRF is the thyroid stimulating hormone releasing factor, and that is secreted by hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is a gland just behind our brain. So, and the function of hypothyroidism is to regulate the temperature. So we are just medically called it a HPT axis, hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis. So these three glands are simultaneously work together. When the hypothalamus got the temperature variation, that's why I'm explaining, because I got in 60 patients, those have a difference in the temperature. Like that, in the developing countries, many of them in the summer are going inside to the AC, and just when they leave the home, the temperature is just varied, or just when the temperature is varied, hypothalamus is secreting a irregular response of TSHRF, and it irregulates the pituitary, and it irregulates the thyroid. So it's not a single gland that only irregulate single only. It's a combination of three glands. That is called the HPT axis. And you are asking about the gluteal diet and the hypothyroid. When the pituitary is not releasing all the 7 hormones in the proper way, then the intestines are not working very well. Even in the when the lady have a thyroid at more level of TSH during the pregnancy, the baby's GIT system is not developed properly. So it have a defect, or some kind of defect in the intestinal cell to absorb the gluteal protein or the albumin or many other things. So it's a necessary follow-up of the thyroid levels in every month of during the pregnancy. That is the latest protocol of a thyroid if a lady have a hypothyroidism. That is the main thing.
Even Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, the founder of homeopathy, taught us that malassimilation in the digestive tract, in the intestines, the stomach, and everything else of our micronutrients is going to cause some dysfunction in the body, in the organs. Today we are seeing epidemic of inability to absorb and use the proteins and in gluten, celiac disease. And then there's a link on Homeopathy World Community on your announcement page that Chris Kresser says that worst thing is, let's say you do take the gluten out of your diet, the immune response to gluten can last up to 6 months each time you eat it. This explains why it is critical to eliminate gluten completely from your diet if you have this problem of autoimmune thyroid disease, AITD. There's no 80-20 rule, he says, when it comes to gluten. It's almost like being an alcoholic, and it's a grain. Mm-hmm. So this whole thing is a system in itself. Now, maybe Dr. Sharma, maybe Dr. Blake can integrate a little bit for us the energy medicines of homeopathy and how perhaps it can help the body to balance. My only question is, if our total environment is in disarray and constantly imposing on our body, forcing our body into a bad situation, can even homeopathy work?
Yes, definitely. David, this is the quality of homeopathy because we are working on the thermal reactions also. When
on the what?
A
On the what
patient is
reactions? I'm sorry.
Thermal reaction. We are always asking the patient is chilly or hot. These are the thermal reactions.
Okay, go ahead.
Basically, the homeopathy is depending on the symptom. Then if you do not know about the homeopathy, so homeopathy is basically a combination of symptoms.
It's a holistic. It's taking everything into consideration. Yes. The emotional state, the triggers.
Of symptoms. And we are know about the thermal reactions also, that the patient is wanting more heat or more coldness in the body, what he likes, what in the cold and hot things. So there are many more medicine, and I only got the Calcarea group is the best treating medicines in the homeopathy. It may be the Calcarea carb, it may be the Calcarea iodata, it may be the Calcarea silicata, and it may be the Calcarea phosphorica. We are always using in last 60 cases of hypothyroidism.
Maybe in India they need a lot of Calcarea homeopathic remedies with that base. But we have thuya, natrum sulf, graphites, ammonium carb, thyroidinum, which would
many
iodum,
many
sea animals, Nux moschata, Lycopodium, pulsatilla. There's such a broad range of homeopathic remedies that would be specifically for the individual. That's why it's important to see a provider, an expert. Dr. Blake, did you have a comment about the using homeopathy and actually seeing cure?
Yes, yeah. As I said before, in my profession, it's species specific. Hypothyroidism is a canine issue, very rare in the feline, and hyperthyroidism is the primary thyroid dysfunction in the feline. I said earlier that the primary my observation is in the vaccine because of just what it does as far as treating the Hashimoto and so forth and so on. But anyway, what I was going to say with Doc talking about homeopathy, my love, like homeopathy rocks. Anybody that doesn't believe homeopathy,
we're losing you.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. If anybody thinks homeopathy is placebo, ask the thousands of animals that have been treated with homeopathy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. What I was going to say is, yes, I have used homeopathy, and I have gotten animals off of replacement therapy who've been, diagnosed hypothyroid, and then we've gotten them off of it and or reduced their load. But it's still, the key to homeopathy is, as you said, you have to see the simillimum, you have to see the picture. However, the thing I've discovered is there are blockages in the body in the form of the things you've all talked about. And unless, so I call it my ABCs. A is avoidance. So you've got to get away from all of these things that are potentially blocking the vital force responding to the homeopathic remedy. And then you have to support those systems that are weak. And then you have to do a detox. And that's pretty much how I approach every case.
Right. So Samuel Hahnemann would say some of these things are blocks to cure. And as long as you still are living in an environment where you're spraying Glade or whatever it is that has all of those hormone disruptors, and you're drinking your water out of plastic bottles that are hormone disruptors, and you're putting, the chlorine and the fluorine in the water, and you're getting fluoride treatments in your little children. Well, what the heck are we doing to our little children?
Yeah.
We're the long-term effects, the short-term effects is going to be devastating, and we're seeing that in our generation. Let's talk a little bit more about the environment. Dana, did you have something special to talk about and let the folks know?
Yes, Debbie, I was contacted by a Japanese reporter named Mari Takanuchi. Mari runs a blog called Save Kids Japan. Of course, I knew about the nuclear accident in March 2011. It wasn't until Mari contacted me, her and her 1-year-old son were in Tokyo when a radioactive plume hit them while they were riding their bikes, and now both her and her 1-year-old have thyroid nodules. Her story struck me, when you're contacted by someone and someone sort of impacts you in a way that pretty much I'll remember for my whole life. Mari is trying to save the kids of Japan, and I wonder about Fukushima and the radiation, because I wonder how it's impacting people of the world. We can think of it as a Japanese accident, but it's seeping into our ocean and our atmosphere, and what impact is it having in countries all around the world. I had read a report that almost half of children in Fukushima have thyroid abnormalities, and I can't help but wonder about the pregnant women that are there as well. If we think about them and how their thyroid is going to be impacted, what will happen to the children, the future children of Japan, what will happen to the future children in the world as that radiation travels through the ocean. I was following a nuclear advocate named Helen Caldecott. She had this press release where she talked about how the radiation would not be resolved, and it could take 300 years for it to be cleaned up, and how the fish and the rice and the food supply is being contaminated. I just think about that, and I think that this is a global issue, and I think that when we talk about what's causing this epidemic, well, what about radiation levels from Chernobyl and Fukushima? What about the radiation that might be leaked from nuclear plants around the world? So I really think about the environment. I was even thinking about mercury. You mentioned fluoride treatments for children. I was thinking about mercury. When I was finishing high school, I was hired as a dental assistant. It was a great part-time job, let me tell you. This was back in the late 1980s, and I was a young girl, and I wasn't, you use your gloves and you have a mask when you're helping the doctor, but I was the person who was like touching the mercury. I was like touching the amalgam and then passing it to the dentist to put in the patient's mouth.
Right.
And I got so sick, Debbie. When I think about, periods in my life when my symptoms worsened, during that period of time, I remember being so tired. I could sleep like 11, 12 hours a night. I wonder about that mercury, and I wonder about, the mercury that's still being used by some dentists for fillings. So I just think about all the toxins. I think about all the toxins in the environment and how that's impacting all of us. And
Well,
Debbie, you wrote a great article about the radiation levels in cows from Fukushima. I just found that article on your site, Homeopathy World Community, so fascinating.
Right. I do what I say, not what I do. I can say, because you're narrowly focused on your message, on getting the word out and changing the system so that women will be tested, or men and women will be tested, just so that they have this knowledge. And then from there, there needs to be a whole nother system in place on how to improve. Yeah. We can't just say,
Absolutely.
You have this number on a scale, let's now just shoot you up with some supplement or replacement, because that's not going to be individualized medicine. So It's got to be a lot more than that. And so what I say is focus in on what is really important to you, your passion and your message. Whereas I'm like all over the place, and I do have, blogs about Fukushima, about radiation, about fracking. Hello, fracking. We are destroying our total environment, causing earthquakes, methane gas. I mean, we're messing up our environment. And I want everybody to be as politically active or legislatively active to write blogs, call your legislators, your senators, your representatives, whoever it is, whatever country you're in, because it's happening worldwide. We have issues with the chemicals in our water. We have all kinds of situations here. The pesticides. I was at March on Monsanto. Hello.
Oh,
you know, it's like you kind of get overwhelmed and bombarded by so many different issues. I love that you are focused, and you know, I just think it's all interrelated. We have messages from our many people on the chat today. For Marianne, you wanted to know the symptoms of hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism, and a homeopathic website to look at. I would say it's very easy to do a web search. There are articles on Homeopathy World Community on Hypothyroid Mom. She has an incredible resource. If you look at her resource list, you're going to get a lot of information. Homeopathically, we're going to have to start to build some blogs for you for that. And Dr. Sharma, you can help me with that. There are websites out there that have some case studies showing success stories. Again, it's not one remedy fits all. Then Dr. Kubashan, thank you so much for answering some of the questions. And I thought I saw something about a cleanse. If Amnon, if you can find it, he mentioned some kind of herb. Oh, here it is. Green coriander leaves made into a paste and taken on an empty stomach for 3 or 4 hours helps to cure these conditions naturopathically. So there are other, and when you talk about cleaning your liver and doing cleanses, this is important for the thyroid too. So, and we talked last week about Epsom salts baths, baking soda baths. There are ways to clear out the heavy metals, the aluminum, the other things that are in our body. Just don't keep putting them back in. Dr. Sharma, I know you've done a lot of research over the last 6 months on hypothyroidism and the patients that you see. Can you give us more insight?
Yes. I just want to share my experience with hypothyroidism, and I got it 2 or 3 the main points. Number 1, the temperature variation I told earlier. Number 2 is temperature variation is the main cause of the hypothyroidism because it irregulates the hypothalamus. That is, I call the HPT axis, and so temperature variation is the maximum number of have a point to cause the hypothyroidism. Number 2 is the sedentary lifestyle. Patients are not doing the proper exercises. They are just watching TV and eating a lot during watching the shows, and they have more anxiety, more types of junk food they are taking. You are just told about the imbalance of the minerals. And number 3 is getting the basically the genetic factors. Many times the pregnant women are working in the developing countries, and those are not care about the diet and the regular exercise, are developing the hypothyroidism during the pregnancy. So it may be the main cause. So then I want to ask one thing. Do you remember the first reading of your TSH levels when you got the first test of TSH?
During my pregnancy, Dr. Sharma? During my pregnancy?
No, not at the first time. When you got the first TSH reading.
You're asking me a really important question, because the fact that I don't know my first reading from after my first son was born. When I was first diagnosed, I was just told you have hypothyroidism. I wasn't given lab results or anything. So I did not know to get a copy. I did not ask. I didn't know to ask for TSH. So that's the other really important thing, is you need to get a copy of your lab records. You need to know what the lab results are. So the fact that I was so naive and didn't know to ask just burns me up. The first time I asked for a TSH level was when I was pregnant and I had miscarried that pregnancy. My TSH level at that time was, I believe it was 8.6, and I was feeling terrible. I was having extreme morning sickness. I was struggling to wake up during that pregnancy. I just felt an overall illness. My hair was falling out. So at an 8.6 during that pregnancy, clearly that was too high. It stayed above between 5 and 10 throughout that pregnancy, and then I miscarried. And then that was when I found a doctor who then treated me and got me into the right ranges. But yeah, before that, I didn't even know to ask, and it upsets me. So everyone watching this should take charge of their health. They should ask. If you don't understand about a diagnosis, ask what tests. Research them, ask for a copy of your lab results, take a look at yourself at the lab results. I did not do that.
So,
Okay, and what medicine you are taking right now for the hypothyroidism?
I'm on natural desiccated thyroid. It's a brand called Nature-Throid. Nature-Throid changed my life. It's a natural desiccated thyroid.
okay.
I know. And you know, there are many different thyroid medication brands, so that's not necessarily the right one for everyone. Debbie, you make up such an important point of making sure to talk to your doctor and exploring the options and making sure to always have consultation with a doctor. But if you're with a doctor that you don't feel is helping you, it may be time to find another doctor.
Excellent. And so I want to stress the key points. One, education. Teach your children. Teach the people that you're close with in your networking groups, in your neighborhoods, in your community groups. The second point is transparency. This is something that we have a major issue with in our country, about really getting factual, real information that is not covered up by scams or myths or falsified data or all these other things. And also I want to, since we only have a few minutes left, I want to talk a little bit about the goitrogenic foods, because what we eat is going to also be an important part in what happens to us, to our endocrine system, and affect our thyroid. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, Dana?
Yes, Debbie, I think that knowing about the goitrogenic foods is really important. There are fruits and vegetables like broccoli and kale that are on the goitrogenic list that you should take a look at. They recommend to only be eaten in moderation, and also to cook and steam your goitrogenic foods in order for them to be safer for you.
Can you define that, because we're using a term and I'm not sure everybody understands it? Goitrogenic.
In terms of goitrogenic,
yeah.
So those are foods. Those are fruits and vegetables that cause goitrogens, which is an enlargement of your neck and can also induce thyroid conditions.
Like goiter and.
Yes, like goiter, and it can cause hypothyroidism. It slows down the activity of the thyroid and ultimately can cause hypothyroidism. There's so many different lists online, but I have a list in front of me. The goitrogenic foods include bok choy and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and cauliflower and kale and peaches and peanuts and pine nuts, etc. So, but a lot of these foods are also very nutritious, great foods for you. So, I wonder about these goitrogenic foods. I still make sure to include them in my diet. I just make sure in moderation. I make sure to cook them, and I'm just very careful with the amount that I include. In particular, peanuts and peanut butter, I think about that a great deal. I try to limit that, and soybeans. Soy, soy is a very interesting topic because I've read so much research connecting soy to the slowing down of the thyroid gland, and I think about soy formula that's being given to babies, and some research that it could put your child at risk for thyroid conditions. And I think about
Absolutely.
all the soy in our different soy products, so I think about that as well. So just to be very informed, do your research. There's a great deal of research on soy and goitrogenic foods. Also, I wonder about polyunsaturated oils. We talk about the research that's connected to that interfering with the function of of thyroid and all hormones. And so I found some information about coconut oil, which I find fascinating. So I've been converting my polyunsaturated oils to extra virgin olive oil and coconut oil. And there's some interesting research about coconut oil and its effect on the thyroid gland. I make sure to include that in my diet. So those are some of the foods that I think about when I'm adding them. I also fish oils and omega-3s and chia seeds and flax seeds. I make sure to include those daily on a regular basis in my diet.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You know what? I think this could be a full day show. I mean, to cover the symptoms, the health effects, the environment implications, the nutritional foods, and there's controversy with all of it because all of the foods that we list are something that I eat every day because they're anti-cancer. Mm-hmm. And so let's maybe question the research, whether it is truly detrimental to our thyroid to eat these wonderful foods, broccoli and peaches and avocados and all the things that we need the oils in to be good for our brain, for our, the way we do function. We have 3 minutes, so I would Go ahead.
Can I say one thing, Debbie? Debbie, it's about being informed, and we need more research. Absolutely, your point is so important.
So, do you have any experience with soya proteins?
I don't have any personal experience, although I made sure to reduce my soy, eliminate the soy that was in my foods based on that research. But again, I wonder, that's a very controversial topic too. So I'd love. I imagine more research needs to be done on that as well.
Well, but soy is estrogenic, so it's both. It's really not healthy for us to be eating it, and it's also GMO. So, I mean, there's nothing really good about soy unless it's fermented. That's the way I personally eat it. Remember, everything on this show is educational, entertainment, informative. If you have a problem, a health problem, you must seek your healthcare provider. I want to thank Dr. Blake for calling in, for all of those folks who have tuned in. We must have a very large audience. We've got a lot of people on the chat. Kavitha, Rob, Senya, Pam, Dr. Kulbashan, Lou, Rochelle, Thyroid Twins. I don't know your name. You know them, Dana. Who are they?
The Thyroid Twins, they're twins that are, you can find them on Twitter at Thyroid Twins. They have a fascinating story about hypothyroidism and great PowerPoint presentation. Great girls to follow.
And Mariana, and Maria. And so we have a lot of folks on here. It's Donna Roach and Corrali Phillips. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for always sharing. And you know what? These shows are archived. So if you want to review it again, if you want to share it on your own website, put the link on it. If you want to put it in an email, it's here for you, as well as all of the last shows for the past, we're working into our second year. Next, Dr. Sharma, did you want to say something? Yes? Oh, he's turned his sound off. Okay, so next week, are you there, Dr. Sharma?
Yes, I am here. And I want to say thank you to all. Thank you, Donna. Thank you so much for such interesting story.
My pleasure.
We're going to have to do a whole show about hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, and homeopathy.
Yes.
Next week, Dr. Ganshayam Kalathia is going to present the magic of the exact match. And he's been doing webinars teaching people about the sensation method of homeopathy, understanding the language of the individual and how he narrows down to find the exact remedy to match their state of being. It's going to be very exciting. Following that is Dr. Aganur Sadeci talking about diabetes and homeopathy. That's been his real focus. And then July 1st is Dr. Stephen Blake on hypothyroidism in pets. On Wednesday, on the Blog Talk Radio Homeopathy World Community Show, is going to be Dr. Christina Chambreau, our veterinary guru. And I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. Maybe it'll be hypothyroidism. I don't know. But we have been having some great discussions. I'll continue to talk about Dr. Herbert Roberts and homeopathy. On Thursday, Blog Talk Radio and Freedomizer Radio will be Alan Phillips talking about vaccinations and your rights in the United States. We talk about every bit of current events that we can cram into 2 hours, and reduction of our stress levels. Hey, that's a really important point about our thyroid. We have to reduce stress. Even though all of this stuff is happening all around us, we have to find a little niche, a little place of meditation, to a place of love, to really nurture our total being and our hearts and our minds, and it will do good for our thyroid too.
Yes.
So,
and get your adrenals tested, so important. Your cortisol levels, and I think stress is a really major reason for this epidemic. So I hope everyone will get their adrenals tested, their cortisol levels. Important.
So you see,
Yes,
it's
definitely.
multifactorial. And I sit at the dinner table every night having discussions about all of this stuff about the environment and how we can improve it, because it does affect us. But in our home, let's find an oasis of peace.
Yes. Love your passion, Dr. Sharma and Debbie. Love it.
Yay!
Thank you.
Go out and
Thank
fight
you.
the world.
Yay!
Okay, until next time,
Thank you.
I'll see you Wednesday, Thursday, and next Monday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow, that was fun.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications
Okay.
Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays 9 a.m. till noon. Carrie's Psychic Cafe with Carrie Silkowski, Sundays 8 till 9 p.m. Health In with Debbie Bruck, Mondays 11 a.m. till noon. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays 8 till 9 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays 9 till 10 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by thatvidblasterguy.com, carolinaapparel.com, and deltaforce.net.